Our top 20 PlayStation video game music picks. Previously, we've covered PlayStation in a PlayStation versus N64 format. We're coming back again because there's just so much great music to cover in PS1. People have been trying hard not to pick picks that were used last time. That opening note you heard is actually the Konami logo. So it's interesting that Rudy hears that as Police Knots. I always thought it was from Metal Gear Solid because I'd never heard it in another Konami game. I don't remember it happening in Symphony of the Night. Anyways, yeah, so that open bit is from Konami. What an amazing startup intro. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. So that's Konami. And to officially welcome in our PlayStation music, we would obviously need one of these. That was loud and not a great recording of it. Interesting that they used it in Police Knots because that was also, I believe, a Kojima game. Let's verify that. Our first track is from Castlevania Symphony of the Night. This is Crystal Teardrops. Holy shit. Is that ever nice? It definitely has that frozen, echoey sound. Even like the tone of the piano is quite almost like a harsh, kind of pristine. It's like the treble is very present. The presence is right in your face. You have a lot of kind of frozen synthy pad sounds. There's a bit of a reverb on the distorted drums, so it has everything sounds kind of crystally, frozen, cold, shimmery. You can hear all these reflections that you would be seeing in the crystal environment. And then, I mean, it just starts with such a nice groove and then takes you to these incredible places. Like, the three pieces in this movement or three movements in this piece, I don't know, are incredible. Wow. What a superstar to start with. Composed by Michiru Yamane. A woman. Next up, this is from Spyro 2. Skelos Badlands. Spyro. I found this definitely has that sort of sound I think a lot of the first-party PlayStation games are going for. I like the way Rudy puts it, very alien sounding, then a bit tribal, crisp, how gloopy and layered it is. I found a lot of the PlayStation tracks had this sort of... It sounds like someone is desperately gasping for air. Oh, interesting. Yeah, I could hear that. It kind of feels like you're getting smothered under something, but in a nice way. Maybe these kind of like bubbly sounds. A lot of the PlayStation first-party tracks would have a real kind of bouncy feel to them, but then kind of edgy and alternative. Weird sounds you wouldn't normally hear in any kind of a music track. It's almost like DJ scratches and just kind of like 90s alternative stuff. They were trying to push it a bit and try to make it feel like this is something alternative, this is something more mature. They're trying to do what Nintendo don't. But they did. I gotta get back and play a Spyro game. I love what Insomniac did with Spider-Man Miles Morales and Ratchet and Clank on the PS5. And I loved Resistance too, so I need to play a Spyro game. I promise I will. Our next track is from a PlayStation 1 RPG called Wild Arms. This is Courage, the dungeon theme. And then there's about a minute left of that track of nothing. Definitely has a JRPG feel to it. Sounds like something you would have heard on the Super Nintendo. Reminiscent of 2D overworld tracks that has an extra bit of determination that makes it something more. Pretty fun. It's got a fun kind of an adventurous, spirited gallop. A bit of kind of mysticism, something magical happening. I love all that badass bass that was going into those games. A bit of like a Latin feel on the bass to give it a sort of propulsion. Very sort of Western sounding, where you take like say a Mexican rhythm or a Latin rhythm and some trumpets. It was great sound. Next up, from a horror game that is not Resident Evil, this is from Silent Hill. The track's called Not Tomorrow. bloody Sunday. Now the mirror's just begun. With a million lost, and tell me who has won. I can hear the battle call. Interesting track, Silent Hill. We've talked about it a lot. Always, who is it? Leonard had said it was Akira Yamaoka. Did something probably nobody would do with a horror video game. Went for a totally different style. Embraced rock, guitars, a bit of symphony, a scratchy, nostalgic sound to it. This one, I definitely hear that something melancholy but needs to be pushed on. Because there's a lot of things folding in on themselves. You got that guitar arpeggio coming down, but in the background there's like a whole bunch of other sort of more piano and like 2 or 3 more keyboards or guitars doing their own little arpeggios. So it gives it this weird kind of layered but really dense feel to it. I don't know if maybe that's hinting at something else that the character's going through or whatever. Oh yeah, it looks like this. And next up is from Xenogears. This is Where Dreams Hatch. I may be really stoned sounding when I say this. Doesn't it sound like that those notes there before when it was just... Doesn't this sound like an egg? Just with the way it kind of goes like plop, 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 plop. It just has this kind of round quality to it. Anyways, this track is called Where Dreams Hatch. And originally, the original translation from Japanese to English was Shattering Egg of Dreams. A very pretty track. Mournful, a bit syrupy and kind of cheesy, but pretty. It probably wouldn't sound as cheesy if it wasn't the MIDI strings. But they're definitely being more ambitious and trying to go for creating an orchestra using all this extra space. It's nice. I think I messed up the recording error. Here's the track from Tenchu. Recording... I'm surprised. Well, it wouldn't be a top 20 show if we didn't have a Legend of Mana track in it. This is Everyday Dream, Spirit Song. Well, the nice thing with MIDI vocals instead of a performer is you can just go as high as you want on that keyboard. That was a crazy note. This definitely has a very heavenly, Jesus Christ, feel to it. It feels like it's glowing, like it feels like you've been saved by someone. You thought the disc was scratched? Let me fix that for you. Oh, your memory card's full? Don't worry. Here's another controller for that one you broke. Very heavenly, powerful, welcoming track. This definitely sounds like the... Or you could play this in a war movie, maybe right as someone does an ultimate sacrifice in slow motion, black and white. All right, from the church into the clubs. A Prince pick, dance and rhythm action, bust a groove. More like a lounge than a club. You're waiting to get into the club.
Crazy the way the fellas and ladies wanna
She dressed like a baby. A giant milk bottle. She's in a crib. Pretty impressive animation for the time. Just a really fun, bouncy, groovy. It's got those really like lush female R&B vocals from the 90s. Really nice. This was a fun time for pop music because they were still... It was a lot of real percussion, and this is a synth bass, but it's still played, you know, it's not programmed in. So you have a lot of actual feel and soul. Real vocals, all kinds of things. Fantastic. And it's all baby stuff. They should have had babies singing. Alright, let's get a little more serious. This next track has no dancing. Unless you call the snake-like, stealthy movements of our protagonist an epic dance. A dance to the death. This is from Metal Gear Solid 1. It is called The Duel. Man, I love the... It's going to sound so pretentious, but the tapestry they create, the world they create with these... with the tones and the instruments they use. Everything is so kind of like light and skippy. All the reverb really gives it this feel like you are in the warehouse or the hangar. And I love those choir voices, which at face value when I first hear them, to me, and even that kind of shimmering thing coming in, it sounds more like a gust of wind kind of blowing through a really large hangar, right? Because you're always in these like big, huge, cavernous... they're not really spooky, but they're sort of like oppressive, and there's sort of like a cold emptiness to them. And then, of course, you got those like really fast hi-hats and the delay on everything, which is pretty reminiscent of what Hans Zimmer was doing in a lot of spy movies and military movies in the 90s. So it gave it a really big Hollywood feel. And everything was very light, which mimicked your hero. Your hero wasn't going out there blasting everybody. Most of the time, you're being quiet, light-footed, sneaking up behind people and choking them. Big boss has arrived. Kept us waiting, huh? Awesome. An incredible soundtrack. And then the way that they weave in the main theme of, bum 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 ba-dum, ba-da-bum bum bum ba-dum. It's just so nice the way it's sort of broken up and stretched out all over the place. Just so nimbly done. Wonderful. Wonderful. One more for the road. Alright, from the ultra-serious Metal Gear Solid, let's dive down to something a little more lighthearted. This is one of the best Ubisoft franchises ever made. This is from Rayman 1, Harmony. Wow. Doesn't that just sound like the greatest friggin' adventure you're about to go on? What a strong, pure melody on that flute. It just builds. And it sounds so big without really being all that big. It's just the way that he uses these notes. And then this beat here, boom, boom, ka, boom, 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 ka. It's the opening to a lot of songs in the 1960s and 50s, like the 50s doo-wop groups. I'm thinking of Be My Baby by the Shirelles, produced by murderer Phil Spector. This is... oh, that bass. You know, to jump from the Super Nintendo to a console that can do that beautiful piano, the strings, so much of this sounds real. And I mean, compared to what the MIDI sounded like then, I would think that this is all fully played and recorded by humans. Oh, man. Okay, another classic PlayStation 1 title that I've never played called Alundra. I think this was PlayStation's attempt at having a Zelda game. This track is called The Wind That Shook the Earth. I think the composer got the note on the Zelda. Definitely trying to evoke some Zelda vibes with that bit of the way Zelda would have an adventurous tone, but the percussion would be almost a military base, like a kind of a slow march, where it gave Link this feel of, I guess that he's a soldier in a way, even though he definitely wasn't. I mean, the first thing you do in at least A Link to the Past is you attack guards. But in the very first Zelda, you're just a guy. Who's there? Who goes into a cave and gets a sword and then goes off and does a lot of things. Seeing the gameplay for that game, it looked looked like the frame rate was quite sluggish. I don't know if that was maybe just a recording error or something. But yeah, they wanted to make a Zelda-type song. I mean, these parts here are almost kind of like Star Wars-y or like a sci-fi show you'd see on the Space Channel or something. They're going for like some like really spacey chord bits and these arpeggios and stuff. It's an interesting track. It goes a lot of places. It's adventurous, but to me it sounds like it's got like it's reaching beyond fantasy. Reminds you of Warcraft 2's OST. Oh yeah, definitely like the spaciness and also kind of like the farty, almost like intentionally farty horns. There's so much going on in the song. This could be, maybe they use this in like a cutscene or something. Interesting track. Now this next one is a title I've heard of, but know very little about. This is what, a Square game called Einhander. The track is called Shudder. That was pretty badass. I think seeing the gameplay really helps, at least for me, because to know that it's going to be this... I mean, a shoot 'em up is all about you're shooting a million bullets a second, people are shooting a million things at you, there's all these kind of things going on. This is awesome. This music is so, like, relentless, hard-hitting. Shoot 'em ups in general, they have kind of a ridiculousness to them with the amount of, like, bullets and everything that's going at you. And I think that this track really, really suits that in a way of just like, now throw in some rap. It's just going to be rapid fire, spitting out some lyrics, all kinds of synths just bouncing all over the place. Perfect. And what a beautiful looking game too. To take the 2D shoot 'em up, but add these nice looking 3D polygons that work because you're not up close enough to see any of the lack of detail and just the beautiful lighting that the PlayStation could do. I love that kind of... I love when tracks like this are really energetic and hypey, but they have a lot of kind of ambient synthy pad stuff in the background. It's just really nice. Very Latin bass. Beautiful. I don't know this track, but it is from Megaman X5. It's also probably going to be pretty upbeat. This is X versus Zero. You know, a lot of times when I hear distorted guitar in video game tracks, I'm a little worried because I don't tend to like it when the lead guitar leads the charge. Here, I like it because it's just kind of, it's adding that kind of, it's like, it works as something to propel it. It's a nice texture underneath. I don't like it when it leads because it's, I don't know, just to me it kind of sounds farty and it's overly distorted. I like all these more lush synth tones that they have everywhere. It just creates a bigger sort of space that I'm listening to. It gives it so much more depth and it can take it to so many more beautiful places. But I like the guitar underneath. I think this is one of the best uses I've heard of guitar in one of these faster kind of J-rock songs. Really nice. Beautiful. Here's another game I don't know a lot about. Take a look at the cover. Vib-Ribbon. It looks like an indie game or a flash game you'd see now. The track is called Laugh and Peace, so I'm expecting good things. Wow. That was quirky. That is doing all kinds of shit. I like how it's got almost like a world sort of something you'd hear at a festival. Like if I was writing a sci-fi or sort of a fantasy movie and I wanted to make it feel like you were really in another world or another time at some kind of a festival, I'd want something like this. Especially the way they play it, the tempo going up and down, or like maybe Rabbit People or something that were at a music festival. Like the way, because you never really hear that in music, having the tempo go up or down. It's incredibly rare. So it would be a good way to take something that, okay, we know music. There's only so many things you can do with music, but using something like that would make it, gives it a totally exotic feel. That was crazy. That was crazy. Who knows, maybe the tempo works with like how the gameplay is working. Let's keep the weirdness going. This is from Cho, Aniki, Kyuukyoku, Muteki, Ginga, Saikyou, Otoko, Dancing Cannon. I'm going to let you have a look at it. And now let's listen. just this very relaxed jazz lounge, kind of cheesy music behind it, and then but it's like kind of cheesy and tongue-in-cheek. It knows that the background is cheesy, and then has these oohs and ahs, and then sampled in all these do-do-do's and whoa to play on the piano. And then in the game you've got digitized men, muscular men spinning around as they shoot, posing, and a lot of legs and muscles. Really exploring what you can do in the medium. Did I say medium? It's obviously hard. Next up, this is a track from a very popular game and franchise, but not one you'd probably expect to hear. People who have been submitting have been really good about trying to pick stuff that isn't normally heard. Isn't, as you can tell from the last couple songs, but even from the more mainstream stuff as well. I'll let this one play and see if you can guess. Yeah, quite interesting. Where you don't expect the synths to come in at all. But what I like about it is that it gives it, again, like Kina is from a very, very different species than anything we've seen in the game. They definitely have their own types of customs, traditions. She plays differently than any of the other characters. So I like that you have the tribal drums, which gives it sort of like maybe a primitive or sort of removed from a culture you know about. Then you got these choir voices that come in that give it a heaviness, a weight, like they have been around for a long time, and they're not so primitive after all. It's more, there's like a mysticism, there's an elegance or a richness to their sort of history, or maybe they have like a vocal history even. And then the synth comes in, which makes it feel like, well, now you don't know what they are. Are they like an alien species? Are they actually from the future or whatever, right? Capture the frogs. And it's sort of, to me, it sounds like Uematsu is speaking with his Cosmo Canyon track in Final Fantasy VII, but this has got more of like a goofy vibe, where Final Fantasy VII was quite melancholic throughout the soundtrack. And Final Fantasy IX was always trying to have some fun. This next track is from Suikoden 2. It is called Reminiscence. I'd be interested if anyone can pick out if this is maybe a tribute to an older classical piece or something, but because it's just so immediately effective, so achingly beautiful and sad. But I'll let you listen and make up your own mind. Wow. Yeah, doesn't that sound like it's quoting something, at least in the very, very beginning of it? Just incredible. So heavy from the opening bit. And so interesting to pair it with these they're sort of deformed, very simplistic JRPG sprites. More advanced than the Super Nintendo, but not too far from it. Trying to take those sprites as far as you could, but I mean, what they were doing with the backgrounds and stuff was so well done. It definitely makes it sound like whatever you're doing is about to be incredibly fucking important. Gorgeous track. Another JRPG from this era. This is from Star Ocean, the second story, Stab the Sword of Justice. Quite the name. God, this is really intense. Very, very intense battle music. I mean, usually JRPG music for battle music is not as like frenetic. You know, there's a million notes going on the hi-hat, lots of cymbals, really excitable, chaotic drums, with sort of like a steady kick and snare drum, bah, 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 underneath it, just sort of keeping time. I love the JRPGs back then because they weren't sure exactly what to do. They were still taking ideas from the two-dimensional sprites of the 16-bit RPGs and then throwing in polygons where they could, or they're like, should we just make the sprites better? Should we make the backgrounds better? Should we make the characters polygons? We don't know. What should we do with the angles? There's so much you can do, and there's so much you can do with the music. So just an interesting time to see people be truly creative and try to problem solve before there was a full template of how to do everything. Alright, let's step out of the JRPG world, and we're going back into platformer land. Much simpler and sweeter. This is from Klonoa number 1, but it might not be that sweet. This is Baladium's Drive boss music. And really interesting theme. It's a very kind of jumpy 6/8. 1 2 3 4 5 6. 1 2 3 4 5 6. 1 2 3 4. Which almost gives it like a 5 feel of it kind of resetting, because it feels like it hits the 1 again when you're not really ready for it. And we've got a lot of like sort of mountainous foresty themes. Just would have fit in great in our episode last week. A lot of flutes, a lot of sounds that sound very sort of like traditional, of like some kind of mountainous people, like sort of Himalayan or something. Pan flutes and a lot of acoustic guitars, and then some killer prog drummer. This is cool. And then the boss that you're fighting in this is pretty impressive too. I've never played Klonoa. I think I need to start up a little playlist of all these PlayStation games that I've never actually played. Good stuff. I believe this next track is from Persona 2, Innocent Sin, and I believe the track is called Etheria. Yeah, it definitely has that Persona vibe. You can almost never go wrong with Persona tracks. I wonder what it is that makes it feel like Persona. It definitely uses a lot of that Japanese jazz fusion sounds. Persona tracks are usually laid back because you have to listen to them so often, except for the battle themes, but there's a lot of these tracks that are really good at just sitting in one spot and grooving, not in a way that's going to tire you out. Soft, real-life funk is a really good way of putting it. Doesn't that sound so fun to drum? So bouncy, so swinging. It's like a real kind of swinging, swaggery Sunday afternoon walk through a city park. There's sort of like a vibe of like that blend of maybe rural or suburban with city. Oh, it's beautiful. So lush. And you can just listen to it forever. And you're going to have to, because these games are long. It's interesting to see the Persona games back then, how they already had that main anime style figured out for all the character drawings. It's like you didn't even really need the newer Persona games to sort of catch up and have the actual playable characters look like the avatars. Really nice. Alright, if you're watching the YouTube edit of this next track will be our last, and we'll be back every Wednesday at 2 p.m. live. If you want to contribute, join our Discord. Should be a link in the description. If there isn't, let me know in a comment, and I'll hook you up. If you're watching the stream, we'll be talking about what category we're going to do next week. Maybe Konami, maybe Castlevania. There's some other ones that we heard. We shall see. But this last track is from Final Fantasy Tactics. This is Trisection.